Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel Legal Nexus. Today we are going to discuss a very important branch of commercial law, the Sale of Goods Act. This act lays down the legal framework governing contracts where goods are bought and sold. It explains the rights and duties of both the buyer and seller, ensures fairness in trade, and provides remedies in case of a breach. Understanding the Sales of Goods Act is essential for students, professionals, and business owners alike because it directly deals with day to day transactions. In this video, we'll cover its meaning, key points, and practical importance with simple examples. The Indian Sales Goods Act 1930 is a mercantile law that came into being during the British Raj on 1st July 1913, borrowing heavily from the 1893 Sale of Goods Act. It provides for the creation of contracts where the seller transfers or agrees to transfer for consideration the title of the goods to the buyer. An agreement between a seller and a purchaser is a contract for sale. For a fixed price, the seller offers to deliver or sell something to a buyer that the buyer has agreed to pay. For this contract, when the buyer pays and the seller delivers, the transaction of ownership occurs. The Sale of Goods Agreement is regulated by the Sale of Goods Act 1913. An agreement between the buyer and the seller agreeing to exchange property is the contract of sale. The contract of sale is specified in section 4 subclause 1 as a contract for the sale of goods under which the seller sells or agrees to transfer the property for a price to buyer. The goods which form the subject matter of a contract of sale may be grouped under the following three heads: existing goods, future goods, and contingent goods. Existing goods. Goods which are on the possession by the seller at the time of contract of sale are called existing goods. Only existing goods can be the subject matter of sale. Existing goods are again brought under three heads. They are specific goods, ascertain goods, uncertain goods. Specific goods. It means goods identified and agreed upon at the time when a contract of sale is made. Ascertain goods. Ascertain goods are those goods which are identified in accordance with the agreement after the contract of sale is made. Uncertain goods. It means goods which are not identified at the time of the contract of sale. They are defined only by description. Future goods. It means goods which are to be manufactured or produced or acquired by the seller after the contract of sale is made. If a contract of sale, the seller purport to affect the present sale of future goods, the contract operates as an agreement to sell. Contingent goods. It means a type of future goods, the acquisition of which by the seller depends upon a contingent which may or may not happen. There may be a contract for the sale of goods, the acquisition of which by the seller depends upon condition which may or may not happen. The essentials of contract of sale. To constitute contract of sale, there must be two party out to be there. Product out to be the basis of the contract, and there must be a fair price. Transfer of ownership of property, ultimate or conditional, and the other important constituents of a contract that is legitimate. Buyer. In clause 1 of section 2, the term buyer is defined to include both the person who actually purchases the goods and a person who is almost willing to do so. However, it was observed in Hervey versus Matthews that a person is not regarded as a buyer if an agreement essentially grants him the option to purchase the product without subjecting him to any legal obligation to do so. Delivery. Clause 2 defines the term delivery to involve a transaction of a transfer of possession which is done voluntarily. Delivery can be actual or constructive. It becomes an actual when the buyer receives the actual products or receives the key to the warehouse where the goods are kept, whereas when a delivery is made without affecting the custody or actual ownership of the item, such as when atonement, a delivery or making a symbolic delivery, it is said to be a constructive delivery. Seller. We all know what is a seller is. Then let's get into the rights of the seller under the Sales of Goods Act 1913 to reserve the right to dispose of the goods until certain conditions are met in accordance with Section 25 Clause 1. To consider a sale on approval to be completed when the buyer conveys his acceptance, performs an act adopting the sale or retain the goods after the stated date without providing notice of rejection. To only deliver the goods upon request from the buyer. To provide the goods in installments when agreed upon. To assert a lien and maintain ownership of the item until the purchase price is paid. Until the price is paid, the goods may be stopped in the transit and resumed to the owner to resell the goods in certain conditions, keeping the goods from the being delivered until the buyer acquires ownership. Duties of the seller under the Sales of Goods Act 1913 to make the necessary agreements for the buyer to receive ownership of the goods, determining and aligning the goods to the sale contract, to transfer the buyer's legal and complete ownership of the goods, to fulfill the contract's requirement for the delivery of the goods, to guarantee that the provided goods adhere to any implied or stated condition or warranties, to prepare the goods for delivery and deliver them as then when the buyer requests. The seller must fulfill the obligation to deliver the items on time or at least by the agreed upon hour and reasonable time. Buyer. Rights of the buyer under the Sales of Goods Act 1913 to receive the items in accordance with the contract, rejecting the goods when they did not match the contract specification for description, qualities or quantity. When goods are given in installment without a written agreement to that effect, the contract may be terminated. The seller must inform the buyer when the goods are being shipped by sea so that the buyer can make insurance arrangements to be given a fair chance to inspect the goods and determine whether they are in compliance with the contract. Accepting delivery of the goods when the seller is willing to fulfill their end of the bargain, to make the required payments in order to obtain the goods, to submit a delivery request for the goods, should insist on getting the goods delivery at a fair time. Accepting installments deliveries of the items and paying for them in accordance with the agreement. The buyer should accept the risk of deterioration during transit when the goods are to be delivered somewhere other than the location where they were purchased. Actionable claims and money are not goods. The expression actionable claim is defined in Section 3 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. It means a claim to any debt other than a debt secured by mortgage of immovable property or any hypothecation or pledge of movable property or to any beneficial interest in movable property not in the possession of the claimant, which the civil court recognized as affording grounds for relief. In other words, actionable claim is a claim for an unsecured debt or a claim for beneficial interest in a movable property which is not in the possession of the claimant. A person can transfer an actionable claim to another person. The law regarding transfer of actionable claim is contained in the Transfer of Property Act 1882. The case law relating to these principles was versus Shade. In this case, there was a stipulation for shipping of rice in a particular month. The rice was not shipped in the month as per the stipulation in the agreement for sale. The court held that there was a breach of condition, which a condition is broken. The buyer could reject the goods and repudiate the contract. Sudarabayama versus Venkateshwara and Co. In this case, the court held that in an agreement for the sale of goods, a stipulation as to the time of delivery would be treated as a condition because punctual delivery is necessary for merchants to fulfill their commitments to their customers. So that was an overview of Sales of Goods Act. We saw how it governs the contract of sale, the rights and duties of the buyer and seller, and the remedies available in case of dispute. This act played a vital role in ensuring fairness and protecting both parties and commercial transaction. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more legal insights.